Hi, I'm Dr. Virginia Bennett. I want to invite you to the 2022 California Online Seth Conference, and also just give you a brief overview of a presentation that I'm going to be giving then. My presentation is entitled Jane Roberts Died for Our Sinful Selves, a Resurrection. I'm a clinical psychologist and probably, like a lot of you, a longtime Seth reader. You don't have to have read a lot of the Seth books, though. If you paid attention to Rob's notes, that is Jane's husband's notes, you'll see that Jane suffered from a whole array of some very debilitating symptoms. Now, Jane was afraid that she had rheumatoid arthritis, which is what her mother had and died of. But Seth maintained right up to Jane's dying day that she did not have that disease. He kept trying to point her in the direction of working with her beliefs and her guilt and a sense of unworthiness and being undeserving that he framed and referred to as, quote, her sinful self. Now, sadly, at least according to the probable reality we are aware of, Jane was not able to fully take advantage of his guidance and his advice to her, and she did ultimately succumb from these symptoms in what, at least from the outside, we would say was an extremely extended and very painful death. You know, one of the harder ways to make a transition to the non-physical. So that leaves us as Seth readers with something of a cognitive dissonance. How can it be that someone who was so talented and so creative as Jane Roberts, writing books on her own, poetry, painting, as well as becoming highly skilled at being able to utilize altered states so that she could interface with Seth and bring forward, along with the assistance of her husband, material that is so clear, so undistorted, such a comprehensive view of multidimensionality and how to navigate it, how to live it, as we know to be the Seth material. How can that be true on the one hand, and on the other hand, that she would have been so hampered by physical symptoms that led to her death? What do we do with that? Now, I want to be very clear here. Why Jane actually died and how she died, it's none of my business. People's lives and their deaths and how they die is exquisitely personal to them. It must be filled with so many intricacies that no one from the outside could possibly understand why someone was born or why or how they died. However, Jane, whether she wanted to be this or not, she was a public figure. And in that way, her life and her death, it's a painting, it's a musical composition, it's a book. And we get to look at that and we get to form our own interpretations and find in it a reflection and levels of meaning that help us to make sense of our own lives, especially since as Seth readers, as people who may know on a bone level that we do create our own reality, that we do get more of what we pay attention to. And yet at the same time, we grapple with our own health problems. We have our own issues with a bank account that stubbornly seems to not reflect the sense of great abundance that we feel we do deserve, that we are working to achieve. Or we keep seeing the same repeating patterns in relationships that don't work out. Or we find ourselves log jammed in a job that's stagnant. So how is it then we can grapple with our own issues, our own version of a sinful self, but be assisted by what we learn from Jane Roberts' experience? Is there some way that her life and her death has gone from being a story about Jane Roberts to actually being a parable, something that we can begin to deeply understand in a way that perhaps we haven't really thought about it before? Because many of us, I include myself, has wanted to kind of put that on the back burner because it's been very uncomfortable to look at. So I invite you to join me and to please bring with you your own thoughts, your own ideas, your own experiences, since there will be a discussion period after my presentation, and maybe together we can begin to make sense of Jane's experience, understanding the sinful self, moving into a resurrection in which we all may find our way towards exuberant health and well-being. I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.